Sorry about that. I had to remake a whole nother video. So if you were attending on that video, um, just remember on this video is taking place back to that video because I don't have a laptop to do all that fancy adjusting and all that. Something was up with my phone in my storage unit, and I already had deleted a lot of my stuff, but I guess it has like a backlog in there. So I had to delete all this shit because it wasn't allowing me to record anymore. But anyways, this is the sauna vest. I normally will wash it. You're not supposed to put it in the washer or the dryer. I just pretty much wash it, straighten it out, and since it's hot, I just stick it outside on the chair. Um, so what I do is I'll use that, like I said, with the hat, and I'll use this bag. Like I'll just throw my shit in here. Like I'll grab my phone. Today I didn't use it, but usually I throw my app, and it'll tell me like how long I'm taking when I go on that run, and usually it's like 4 miles, 4.32 miles. So if I go a little further, I might hit like 5 miles, but normally I just do a 4 mile run. A while back, I did a 15 mile run. That took about like 2 hours and something minutes because I ran through here, ran over there, ran way over there where my mom and them live, went past Family Dollar, came all the way back, went to the park, like a bunch of fucking ridiculous shit. But I go for the extreme, you know what I mean? Like when I work out. So I mean, it's funny because I don't feel that my body is like super built, but I don't know. I mean, I see myself every day, so maybe to my mind, I'm like, eh. Some other people might be like, fuck, he looks good. You know what I mean? I don't know. I really honestly don't know. Like the women look at themselves the same way, you know, like they might admire something about them, but about themselves, but maybe they feel like, oh, this isn't big enough, or this doesn't look like the way I want it, or you know what I mean? Like we're all conditioned funny and shit. But anyways, I'll throw all my stuff in this bag. I'll put this on. I have a key ring thing. I'm sure if anybody's seen my old videos, I showed this to my nephew. I'll strap it right here. Uh, and when I'm running, I'll just pull this down. So just you know, and it holds pretty good. You know what I mean? This thing right here will hold it. So it's a pretty cool little trick. You know, unhook it, empty my shit out. You know, just put for my keys, and I'm good to go. You know. Also, I got these new shoes. They're pretty good. Before I had went to Big Five, and I told them, hey, like I run a lot. Like, you know, this was some years back, and I told them, what would you recommend, you know, as footwork? Because if you buy regular shoes, it's only good. They're more than likely, depending on how you walk, they might last 6 months. You know what I'm saying? But if you have really good shoes, they'll last about a year, maybe a year and a half. These lasted me 3 years, 3 fucking years, and they got good tread. Like this is really good tread. But lately, I can feel it. Like it's gotten so thin right here. So when I step on rock, like, cause I'm going through the desert, you know what I mean, and it just constantly like. But for 3 years, these Adidas, these are the fucking shit, yo. Cloud foam. I need to look them up so I can repurchase these. And they didn't have them at Big Five for some reason. I wanted to repurchase these, hopefully maybe in a different color, like black. These blue ones, they're not bad. It's like blue and gray. But man, these I'm telling you, these were specially designed to fucking take on real terrain. Like, I mean, I'm talking about like run for your life type shit, you know? I bought these ones. They were a little cheaper actually because these ones, I believe, from when I had bought these were like $57 or $58. They're fucking expensive, or maybe more, depending on how you make money. You know, so expensive to you, it's probably not expensive to you. You know what I mean? Some people are different, but these are the RBKs. I don't really know what it fucking really stands for, but this kid's like, oh, this is for good terrain. I touched the bottoms of these, and it felt pretty hard. But I haven't had them that long, but I feel honestly that at some point they're going to give out. I don't think they're going to last me no 3 years. For some reason, these were just specially designed for running. You know what I mean? Like, I know that they test shit really good at companies, and these were. I gave them a fucking like a 12-star. You know what I mean? Like these were really good. If you're a runner, these were really good. But anyways, these will do for now. You know what I mean? I've been running in these. They're not too bad for $29.99. Also, when I train, I stopped training with these. These are my 12 ounces. I had bought these a while back. These were fucking expensive. Everlast. They're really good. I like them. I don't know. They didn't have any other kind of color I really liked. So I just said, fuck it, I got these. You know, of course, 12 ounces. They're a little bigger. You're going to move a little slower, you know. My ex, she bought me these for my birthday online when she was working. She was at home. She was ordering me shit. And I told her, this is what she kind of found it difficult to buy stuff for me. Like when it came to shopping. So I think at one point she just kind of wanted to give me money, and she's like, I don't know how to shop for you, you know, and I felt bad. Like, I want you to know, you know what I mean? Like, because we really cared for one another, you know what I mean? And yeah, there was a lot of shit that happened between us. I don't have to really go on to all that, but I mean, I believe deep down inside she's a good individual. She's just a little lost, you know what I mean? Like, we all have our shit, but I did really appreciate what she got me, you know what I mean? She got me these gloves. These are, let me see, they're 8 ounces. I don't know if these were kids' ones by accident or something, but they're pretty solid, you know? And I wanted some smaller gloves, you know, because I've been wanting to test out like some 8s or 5s, or maybe 10s, but these are 12s, so they're bigger, you know, whatever. And she got me these. These are what I really wanted to get for like the longest time, because I had these other funny ass looking wrestling shoes. I just worked with them for the boxing sake, and I wanted to buy these, but I remember she told me, don't fucking buy those. Like, hold off on that, you know? And eventually she's like, hey, I want to get you your birthday presents, you know? And there was a lot of times she wouldn't follow through on some things, you know what I mean? But she kept her word on this one for sure. She really wanted to get me these shoes that I really wanted. And they're good. They're badass little boxing shoes. I honestly wanted some lower ones. These are high tops, but can't complain. You know, they're really good quality. These two, I like these. And there were some particular Jordans that I wanted to get, but for some reason when she was looking into it, she couldn't find them. And if we were to trust any of the other websites, you know, like, because they didn't really have it on Amazon as far as I know, or if they did, it's a little bit more expensive. But if they had it on other online services, they weren't really known. So, you know, of course, nowadays you don't trust shit too much on the internet. You might get jacked, and then they send you something in a box, and it's just a picture of the shoes. You know what I mean? Like, she heard that there was a lot of ripoffs and shit and stories, and she's like, I don't really trust it. I was like, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? So anyways, that was just a long story. But these are the stuff that I work with. As far as my training goes, and then I have weights here. I curl this. I just started curling this again. At first I was removing this and just curling with that to make it a lesser weight. Now it's a lot heavier. And then after I'm done lifting that one time, I'll come over here and I'll lift this like 25 times. And then, you know, of course I got my my little shit here. I haven't really been doing that lately, but I did do it a couple of days ago, like with my chest. I was working my chest, I was working my abs, I was working my legs. And oh, and I was going to show you too, like when I juice my juicing, I have a juicer here, and I put all my juice in here. I fill up the water maybe about that much. I blend it, and then once it's filled up here, like if it hits 48, then it pretty much will be like a 33-ounce glass or a 34-ounce glass. Now, if it goes anything higher, between the 64-ounce, like up here, then I could fill up 2 full cups and maybe a little more, you know. But I pretty much will take this off, pour the juice in here, then put it down, and then I'll strain it. You know, I'll strain this, and all the juice will come in here. And obviously you can tell from the rust of this, but for some reason it doesn't rust this one so much. I clean it, and then I just you know, just put it away. So on and so forth. So that's what I work on. And anyways, back to what I was gonna originally talk about from the last video I had. I know I didn't really sum a lot of good points up because I was talking about the Enoch. Now, somebody might know right off the back, like, oh, okay, well, he said that there's no Enoch in the Bible, right? But I not the whole story from what I'm told, but he's mentioned in here. Because I had to backtrack on some of the things that I said in the other video, and I wasn't fully prepared on that video, so I wanted to apologize for about that. But anyways, he's mentioned in here, but not in the story that like the other book that they have. But like I said, with the Enoch dude, I believe with that whole story, he was communicating with the fallen angels, right? So I could say that it's not a very important story versus like if you're trying to learn the Word of God and trying to learn about safety and, you know, whatever's in here is meant for you to really actually learn, like what you're mainly supposed to focus on. Now, with the Enoch shit, yeah, if people want to look into that, then go for it, because, you know, you could be, you know, finding information and getting good information, but I don't think it's something that we're like we need to learn. You know what I mean? But I do understand within that story, it will show you like how you can be misled and deceived, right? Because it's about deception and being deceived. You know, because he's the father of all lies, which I'm talking about Lucifer, the devil, or whatever, you know. But anyways, that's from what I was saying in the last video. That's the conclusions I came to be like, okay, well, this dude, he was communicating with the wrong shit. You know what I mean? And if you look at that story compared to nowadays, you know, a lot of people are segregated. A lot of people are like being taught certain shit. You know what I mean? Like, because you got, okay, like for instance, when the COVID thing happened, the COVID was like rampant all the time, constantly on TV. People were feeding into it, you know, like, oh, you know, and for some reason, like, right, hasn't everybody ever really thought about that? Like for that first year or two, people were just running to the store to get a bunch of toilet paper. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where were they getting that information from that made them panic to automatically just get toilet paper? Like, I don't think there was a lot of people that were like, what the fuck was that all about, right? So those people that were saying that, roughly in their mind, you gotta really understand, right? If they were thinking about that way, they were probably like not giving a fuck about thinking about wiping their ass. They were probably more thinking about like, where are we gonna get our food? You know, if we're gonna have a food shortage or if the world's going crazy, you know what I mean? Of course, you're gonna want to get shit that you need to survive on. You know what I mean? But I don't know where the source was coming from when it came to buying all that toilet paper. Like, you know how much money those industries probably made off that panic? Like, oh, yeah, you know, they all fucking grabbing toilet paper and shit. Like, oh my God, dude. And then look at it now. Nobody gives a fuck. Nothing's happening. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I say, like, all of it's an agenda to a game. But people don't really think about it. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some intelligent people out there, or some people are roughly, they don't have to be intelligent. They just have common sense to be like, look, all this shit was going on, and then for what? Like, nothing happened. Like, we're all still working. We're all still, it's just the same shit. You know what I mean? We're all feeding into the bullshit. So, oh, sorry about that. But anyways, back to some of the old stuff that I was talking about before. I'm trying to remember some of the things that I said in the videos. Oh, there was a part that I was talking about in the last video, talking about when I was drinking and I had like entities fucking with my mind, right? Now, some people will get that, some people won't. But for the people that do understand it, that have been attacked, like for instance, my cousin, he told me that he knew a friend of his, right, that he did some drugs or something, and he had a bad trip, and he said that the devil was chasing him in the street. So I'm just gonna assume, because I didn't hear that whole story, but I'm gonna assume that it was probably at night, right, and he was fucking doing some shit, and he was out and about, and whatever entity or demon or even maybe it was the devil, I don't know, fucking came about him and scared the shit out of him, like, and he said that to his friend. His friend told him that motherfucker was chasing me in the streets, dude. You know what I mean? So, because when he was running, he was probably being chased. Like, oh my god, like he was probably being chased by something. Now, I've heard many stories like that, but in different tales, and I don't think people are just because they're on the shit, they're just tripping. Because why are they all tripping on the same shit, right? Like, you got to really think about it. So you know, bad entities and stuff like that, they do exist. The same way that is evidently there's a God, there's a creator. You know what I mean? You don't have to believe that, but like I said, there's a lot of proof, and there's like real foretellings that will tell you that. You know what I'm saying? Like this has been around for ages. This will always be around. And you can't deny it, like word for word. Like I had an uncle before he passed away, which was my cousin's father. God rest his soul. He was a really good fucking man. Like, he was a really good dude. If you got to really know him, you would want to know a lot. Like, he was a wise teacher. You know what I mean? He was one of the wisest teachers I ever had. And I kind of feel like in our family, like someone always picks up where someone else left off. And one of my aunts told me that, so apparently I'm picking up off where they left off. You know what I mean? Like, so anyways, that's a whole other story. But back to the attacks, I do believe in those things, because when I was drinking, I'm the only one that was here, right? And I was in the kitchen. I felt something really like fucking with my mind in here, and I'm talking about like mentally. And it felt more than it was one entity. It was like two. It felt like they were both messing with my energy. And one thing I had noticed was that, like, in my trauma, shit was popping up like real strong, and I was like, oh fuck, like in my mind. And the trauma that was spilling up was some old memory feelings that only I know, that I can recognize from that trauma that spiraled in me as a child when I was 8 years old, and I used to get really fucking beat by my father, or he did like really abusive shit to me. So I could feel that trauma popping up, and it was like, whoa, like it was like, wow, like whatever they were doing to me, they were like stimming it out, like they were pulling that shit out, you know what I mean? And I think they were trying to cause some kind of harm or suffering. But also too, like if you're a true believer and you're not like an evil person, or you don't have wickedness in your heart, you know what I mean? I think God will kind of allow those things to take place, because even though they're trying to do something bad to you, you're still protected under the order of God, right? Because there's laws, and there's actual protection that is bestowed upon you. And maybe in a weird way, he's like, I'll let them fuck with him, but they can't hurt him, they can't kill him, you know what I mean? And maybe he just knows in his own, because he's an omniscience, he's an all-knowing, he's the beginning without end, and you know what I mean, and so on and so forth. So only God's gonna know what is taking place. So maybe even if they were doing bad on me, maybe it was something good in the end, you know what I mean? Maybe they were pulling out some old trauma that I was unaware of that was still there, you know what I mean? And maybe it did some kind of cleansing, but in reality they were trying to hurt me. But God knew, like, okay, well, they're doing shit illegally on his body, that they're gonna do these harmful things, but it's nothing that he can't take, and he could survive from that, and I won't allow him to die. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think that they mean he works in mysterious ways. Some people will get that, some people won't. But like I said, if you look into the Monroe Global Incorporated pastor, preacher guy or whatever, he'll explain that there's laws that God had made, right? Like, kind of like the laws nowadays out there in the world, right? Like, if you walk across the street, there's a possibility a cop can pull you over because you're not using the signal light, and you're jaywalking. They're like, oh, I gotta give you a ticket. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of that shit's stupid, dude. Like, I get it. You gotta be safe when you cross the street. But some things are ridiculous. Like, like if you're crossing the street and then they want to slam you with a ticket or give you a piece of paper, why should you have to take that piece of paper I mean, you could just sit there and be like, hey, you know what? Don't cross the road like that when it's busy. You know what I mean? Like, you could hurt yourself. And I'm just letting you know, because it's my job to make sure that you're safe on the street, because I don't know if you're drinking or what, you know what I mean? Because it's down by the casino or just anywhere in general. But for another man that says they take order of laws that they bestowed upon you, and they serve you out, and then you got to pay an arm and a leg, and we all kind of don't really make it that well in the world, you know what I'm saying? Unless you're rich, and then they're like, oh, and then they break and define laws of their own laws to give it to these people because they're rich. So it's just like certain things, it's not of the way we're supposed to be meant to live. And that's my point to a lot of these teachings too, that I'm trying to break down for people to kind of understand, or hopefully to understand. But in the ministering, like I was saying, the guy Monroe, he'll tell you the laws of what God created, right? So one of the laws is pretty much like not cheating, right? Like, and I'm not talking about like relationship cheating, but cheating in a way of, okay, like when you go down and you gamble, right? That's not a good thing, because like you're being lazy, right? Like you're trying to take a shortcut by like, you know, oh, I'm gonna spend some money, and if oh yeah, I win, you know, and they get this money. 99% of the time, you're not gonna win like that. You might win $100, $50, you might hit 1,000. You know what I mean? But how often will you hit? You know what I mean? Like, will that happen all the time? Like, I don't think so. Like for me, I personally think that, like, you know, from what I was hearing, not what I personally think, but from what I was hearing, is that, you know, God doesn't like that because it's against his law. So like, for instance, like let's just say, for instance, like you're not working for any of these companies, and you own your own land, and the way you're going to live is like, you're like, okay, I don't need a job, but I have land that I already paid for, and I built a house on it. And then you bought cattle and farm and all, and you start growing, and you know, your job would be pretty much maintaining your land. You know, how you grow your shit, how you get your water, how you get your supplies. That's actual honest work. And you know, you do the hard work, then you get blessings from that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he morally believes in the fact of being all what's right. You know what I mean? Like actually being honest with yourself, being honest with the people, being honest with the work. Now, when you're taking a shortcut, it wouldn't be no different from like, okay, prostitution, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna sell my body and I'm gonna fuck and do all this shit to get money. You're taking the shortcut, but then also you're defiling yourself. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same. Other as an example is like selling drugs, right? You're hurting your own people by giving them drugs so you can gain power and money. And then if you start shooting it, you're in a whole world of hurt. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I believe that there's reasons to why he makes these laws, to be like, okay, this is more glorifying, or this is more righteous, right? I believe it's just more of like how you elevate yourself, and how more positivity you can grow up from that. Because think about it, like some people are like, everyone has their own opinions to things. But what I'm trying to get is for everybody to open their mind a lot more. Because like, what if your kids were doing that? Like, right? And it really does depend, like I said, because people are different. There can be parents that they just don't give a fuck about them kids. You know what I mean? Like, they open their legs all the time. They had like 3 or 4 baby daddies. They got 3 or 4 fucking kids, you know, and they're looking for a man so that way he can help pay the bills. And she's like, oh, I love you. And, you know, and then in reality, she doesn't. She's just playing this motherfucker, and then she's over here fucking with 2 other fucking fools. You know what I mean? Or dudes do the same shit. Dudes do it. You know what I mean? I've seen dudes do it. I'm not saying it's just women. But in reality, it's like, you know, it's how you go about certain shit. You know what I mean? Like, either you are a good parent or you're not a good parent. But if you are a good parent and you love your child, you would want the best for your child. So therefore, why would you want them selling drugs? Why would you want them fucking prostituting? You know, or out there gambling half their fucking paycheck, when you know their habit. Like, fool, you come over here and you gamble, like, you gamble more than you actually win. And the times that you win, you think you're winning big because you won a couple grand, but you spent $5 grand in the last month. So you barely got back like $2 grand. You know what I mean? You still lost $3 grand. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just, I get it. For me, if you're going to go out and do what you're going to go do, you know, just, you know, do it with very small moderation. like maybe like once a week out of the weekend, like I'll play like $20, $40 the limit. You know what I mean? But you can easily get sucked into it. You know what I mean? Trust me. I spent like 150 fucking dollars in like 30 minutes. You know what I mean? I was like, and I got mad. You know, I was like, I'm not fucking winning shit. You know, like, but you got to remember, there's a difference between trying to focus and win something, or you just kind of go with the flow. You play your game, you drink a little bit. You know, you're just gonna try to have fun. But I think majority people need to, have fun in different ways. Like, let's go to the park, or let's go jog together a little bit. Sweat and talk, and have some ice cream or something that's different from having to do the casino shit. You know what I mean? Do we always have to go to the casino and gamble and drink and do all, or go to the club? You know what I mean? Like, there's barbecues you could do. Like I said, the parks are really nice because there's grass, there's trees, there's shade. You can talk, you can have a little snack or something. You know what I mean? Just healthy ways to hang out without having to have a substance. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I feel like I lost a lot of friends, because I don't drink, I don't smoke weed, I don't do coke. Like people are just different. Some people pop pills, some people smoke weed, some people drink. Some people want to, hang out at their house, but what are they doing? They're drinking and they're smoking. I mean, I've been there. I've hung out with, some friends, and they're drinking, and I'm there. But over time, I'm like, I gotta go. You know what I mean? Because they're getting on that level. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, but I'm not saying it's bad all the way around. I'm just saying that I can only be around for so long till where it's like, okay, it's not doing it for me. You know what I mean? Because if you're both drinking, then yeah, you guys can turn up together all day. But if one's just turning up and then you're kind of like, and then you start to notice stuff when you're sober. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he's starting to slur. He's getting sloppy. You know what I mean? Now, when you're both sloppy, you kind of don't care. You just kind of slop everywhere on your own. But anyways, I was gonna read a verse out of this here, and just kind of break down. I kind of pre-read it earlier before I started the video, so that way you can kind of understand a lesson here or whatever. I don't know. However it's gonna go, we're just gonna get into it, right? So this is Luke 5:29, page 1126, and it's I'm gonna read this here. It's Jesus and the Sabbath. All right. So, and it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first that he went through the cornfields, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands. And certain of the Pharisees said unto them, Why do ye that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days? And Jesus answering them said, now I'm going to get to the red part, and the red parts here, these are actually, like, I'm assuming the the words of God or the words of Jesus, but it's roughly the same thing. Have ye not rode so much as this, what David did when himself was an hungered, and they which were with him, how he went into the house of God, and did take the shewbread, and gave also to them that were with him, which it is not lawful to eat, but for the priests alone. And he said unto them that the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. And it came to pass also on another Sabbath that he entered unto the synagogue and taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered, and the scribes and Pharisees watched him whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. But he knew that their thoughts, and said to the man which had the withered hand, Rise up and stand forth in the midst. And he arose and stood forth. Then said Jesus unto them, I will ask you one thing. It is lawful on the Sabbath days to do good, or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it. And looking around about upon the all, he said unto the man, stretch forth thy hand. And he did so, and his his hand was restored whole as the other. And they were filled with madness, and committed one with another what they might do to Jesus. Okay, so now I'm going to read the interpretation to all that of what I read. This is 6:1:11. That's what it goes up to. Luke's purpose in describing the escalating tension between Jesus and the Pharisees is the prepare his readers for the eventual rejection, arrest, conviction, and conclusion of Jesus. The Pharisees have already clashed with Jesus because he claims God's own authority. 5:17-26, and because he associates with sinners. 5:27-39, now they reject him because he does not keep the Sabbath as they interpret it. These three issues will dominate the relationship between the Pharisees and Jesus, culminating in his crucifixion. So this is a really important statement, and I was praying before I did this video, and I was like, God, help me find a verse that I could read that people will understand. So now it was clicking when I was reading it. So basically what makes it very important is because, okay, back then, the authorities is kind of like the authorities of now here, right? So like, let's say you got arrested for being falsely accused of something, and then like, I don't know, let's say you're at the court, right? You're in your chains and you have your jumpsuit on, and the judge is being hard on you, and you snap and you're like, you know what? Yeah, fuck you, right? He's gonna be like, order in the court, get him out of here, right? And they have all these lawful people. They have, cops that will grab you and restrain you, and, because it's the law, right? So back then, it was probably like a million times more worse. It was probably like a million times more scary. Because, like, okay, if you did anything of their teaching, because they believed in God or whatever, right? Like certain nations. So like let's say you stole, they'd probably cut your fucking hand off. You know what I mean? Even if you're a 12-year-old kid, they're like, I don't care. Like, people were fucking nuts back then, right? And especially when it came to certain beliefs. So like if they thought you were a witch, they would stone you to death. You know what I mean? Like people were just fucking nuts. So back then, they felt, because Jesus was pretty much the Messiah, right? And he was performing miracles, and he was bringing people with him, and he was picking particular, which are known as his I don't know if you want to say disciples or I forget the words of. Give me one moment here. I know it's in the Acts. Oh, apostles. Either they're apostles or disciples, right? So basically, okay, so he was going around and he was making claims of things, and then he was also being like, I have the authority of God, right? And back then, making a claim like that is against the law, right? Like, if you can't prove that, you go on to death, right? Because they're like, oh, how dare you? Like, it would be pretty much like nowadays, you know how like some fools that are like assassins, I don't know if you heard about these, but there's fools that are so sick with the assassinations, like they were in government issue shit, which would be like if they were in special ops or the Marine Forces, and something happened to them where they got out of there and they needed to make money. They know things from their training, and they know like how to go on the internet or look for certain ads, and there's agencies that will equip them to be like, hey, we're looking for assassins, trained assassins, and we'll pay you, right? So they give them fucking passports, they sign them up with their thumb, they do all this crazy shit, and these fools will kill you, you know what I mean? So some of those dudes, like, they're sick with it. Like, if they're gonna do an actual assassination on somebody, sometimes they'll get like particular gear, or like they'll get like rubber face, put on a hat, they'll have fake hair, like to go and assassinate somebody so they show their identity. Some of them will put on like cop suits, which would be like impersonating a cop, right? And that's like either a felony in some states, or that could be like, that's really against the law. Like you could pay big time for that, right? So basically it would be like back then to now, like impersonating something like that. And for them, that was like an automatic death sentence. So that's what the crucifixion was like back in those times in that nation. That's how they showed justice. Like, like some places will be like, oh, hang him. And the person would be like, they would fucking hang him. And their body's like, but in that particular nation, they did the cross thing. They did the crucifixion shit where they nailed your hands, and it wasn't just Jesus that went through that. There was a lot of people that would get prosecuted like that. That's why, like, when he passed on, there was two other individuals alongside him, like one on one side and one on the other. One was a thief and one was a murderer. But he knew of those circumstances or whatever, and they were asking for forgiveness, or however that story went. And he took them up with him to heaven, right? But anyways, so that's what's important about the story, is because he was all of authority, but people didn't want to believe it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. History will speak for itself today, because back then, like he would show people in a full-blown audience, like, okay, this kid's blind, woof, open your eyes. The kid's like, oh shit, I could see. Or the dude that had broken legs, he put a blanket over, put his hands over his legs, and told him, okay, get up and walk. And he walked. You know what I mean? There was other crazy shit, like Ezekiel, I think it was. I'm not sure if it was that dude, but one of them, he put his lips on his forehead and he breathed in life, and the guy was resurrected. He resurrected one of the lady's brothers back from the dead after 3 or 4 days, right? So there's other things in there too that I've read that are talking about a foretelling, which means like foretelling would be like telling the future, right? And then a foreseeing would be like you had a vision, like, oh, whoa, I saw into the future. And that's where some of these stories come from. It's either a foretelling or it's a foreseeing, right? So in the stories that I was hearing, there's another story where like this guy's bones and ashes, something about his bones and stuff, because he was already dead, they touched together and the whole body resurrected, right? And it's like, whoa, what does that mean? Now, these stories aren't just stories for you to like come to conclusions, like, because there's been a lot of people that want to discredit everything and be like, oh, there's no such thing as God. It's just a story. Like, okay, for instance, some people will understand this, some people won't. But they always use the story of David and Goliath, and in that telling, they're like, oh, it's just a saying of a story to show that we can overcome big obstacles. And it's like, no, that's not it. That story really actually did happen, and it's evident to what it's actually saying, right? But people don't really dig for the truth. They just allow other people to like disqualify it. And they've been doing that for a long time. You know what I mean? These stories are actually some shit that it's telling you that we are very unaware of. You know what I'm saying? And okay, so I'll give you an example, but I won't tell who the names are or anything. But there was this girl. Okay, so I'll just go off the story. There was this woman that was on a trip or something with these kids, and there was an unfortunate incident where she fell off the cliff, I think like 180 feet. I'm not sure if that was the real actual amount of feet, but I know that she fell very far, and she passed away, and she was in a body bag down there. Her brother got a call, and he went down there, and he prayed over her and all that, because what he was trying to do was resurrect her, because in the Bible, somewhere there it states that in reality we can do that. We're capable of that, right? And it didn't happen. So I'm not going to say that he's wrong. I really 100% agree that he could have done it, but maybe there was just something that was lacking, uh, other than what it teaches, right? Because people will go off the words of stuff, but it might be because, like, I don't know, maybe the spirit wasn't strong enough. Maybe you weren't fasting out of the day. It could be anything. You know what I mean? Like, I've had events happen with me where, like, okay, I had a nephew named Daniel, and I told him, like, at this time, I was a little out there. I was smoking weed, I was drinking and all that shit, and whatever I would come to mind, I was like, I believe in it so much, I'm gonna make it happen. So I told him, hey, put your fingers on my pulse right here, and he would put his fingers there, and I'm like, watch this, and somehow in my mind, I just said go, like in my veins, my blood started going boom, 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 and he's like, whoa, and I was like, that's crazy, huh? And then I told him, hey, let's see if you can read my mind. So he was sitting on the couch, and I put my forehead on his head, and I closed my eyes, and basically in my mind, I was like, ah, I was screaming. And he was sitting there, and I remember opening my eyes a little and looking at him, and he's like, he was young, dude, you know what I mean? And you could see the reaction in his, like, he was trying to really, like, sequence with me, right? And then I told him, okay, and I stopped, and I told him, what did you hear? And then he looked around because he didn't want anybody to know, right? And he whispered in my ear, he's like, ah. So he heard me, dude. How the fuck is that possible? You know what I'm saying? Some people might get a thought in their mind, and that other person that happened to walk in, it's their thought. And then they'll say it, and they're like, oh my God, I was just thinking that. No, you fucking weren't. You heard that person's voice, right? So some things you have to open your mind to. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like for instance, when I was growing up in Victorville, California, I had a homie named Real. He was a Crip from Compton. He moved to San Bernardino. He knew people from there. And, anyways, he moved next door to me, and I got to know him. And that's when I knew he was like a straight, real fucking gangster from where he was from. And this wasn't because when I was growing up, high school, they were always trying to be like that. Hey, we didn't, and Mexicans like, hey, say, like they thought they were hard. You know what I mean? Like, maybe some of them knew their shit, maybe some of them weren't that bad. Like some of them, like I knew some fools out to get down. But when it came to real shit, this fool was real, bro. Like, he had guns, like, he had stories, like, he got shot. He told me about a cousin of his that got shot twice in the head. And he fucking drove himself to the hospital. Like, that's fucking crazy. You know what I'm saying? And I actually met that fool. I met him. He was wearing a do-rag, and I told him, hey, dude, do you mind? And he's like, yeah. And he put his head down, and I ran my fingers along his head, and boop, boop, I felt the fucking bullet holes. But the only reason why, like, some people are probably going to be like, well, how did he know to put his head down? And I knew Real really well, and he knew me. And with these dudes, like, when they open up to you from their gang shit, and, like, because he was whatever he was going through back home, he moved to where I was at. Like, they called it the suburbs. From them, that's what they called it. And it was to get away from the shit. They had kids. Him and his lady were like, you know what, let's get out of here. Like, they didn't want to be in the hood anymore. You know what I mean? They wanted to grow. They wanted to prosper. They wanted to do the right thing. And that's hard to do. When you're, like, trapped and shit like that, and you want to get the fuck out, it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, I know. Trust me. It took me a while to get the fuck out of Victorville. Even though I was, like, so conditioned to want to stay, I'm glad I got out of there. You know what I mean? But I didn't go through a gang of shit like maybe he did, or some of my other homies that been through it. You know what I mean? Thank God. But I was there in order to learn. You know what I mean? And in order to really understand, like, what these fools go through. You know what I'm saying? And and also too, it doesn't. I'm not no punk. You know what I mean? Like, I know what's up. I've seen the shit happen. But Real knew me really well. So if he told his cousin something, it's because he really peeped to him like, hey, this nigga, he know and would do, but if he ask you, and you know what I mean, he got they get permission from the higher head because he was ranked, you know what I mean? And I even met another cousin of his, they called him Brick, right? And he had got out of prison, and he was big. He was fucking big, dude. And I remember he was like, hey, nigga, he's like, we're gonna go to the store real quick. and get some drink. He's like, you wash my house. And Real called the shots. You know what I mean? That's when I knew he was a fucking OG. And his cousin was like, oh, like that, Real? Like that, cuz? He's like, oh, all right, see how it is, see how it is. And he got all butthurt, right? But he was friendly about it. Like, he didn't look down on me or nothing. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I actually had it to that extent with that fool where he's like, hey, watch my pad. You know what I mean? Like, don't let anybody. It could have been a joke, you know what I mean? But I think also too, at the same time, in respect, it's like, I trust you enough to, like, don't fuck with my family. You know, watch if, because, you know, I don't know, he could have been in danger. He could have had people after him. I don't know, but I know he was paranoid. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying. Like, when you get to know people like that, like, and you have a strong foundation or like respect with them, they'll break it down to their family, who they're close to. You know what I mean? Because they don't just let anybody in. And I know that because my family is gang related out in Chino and all that from back in the day. I don't know about now anymore. A lot of my family died off. A lot of people have passed away, you know, God rest their soul. But yeah, so basically, you know, like I'm saying, is just that all those things have lessons in life, you know, and especially with the book, it explains a lot of the authority that was really taking place back then, and then a lot of things that are the way it is now. You know what I mean? So, okay, like for instance, I was going to talk about this movie. I'm sure everybody's seen it. It's the Chronicles of Riddick. Now, a lot of these movies, if you pay attention to certain movies, I'm not going to say all of them, but if you pay attention to certain movies, some of these stories stem from this book. Like this one, it was talking about, if you ever seen it, there's a lady in here, and okay, there's a bad guy in here, obviously, right? And he runs all these nations, and he takes over all these nations, right? And he makes people convert from their faith, like bow down, right? And it kind of sounds like the Antichrist in a way, where he's like, bow down to me, right? Or you're all gonna suffer, or I'll take your soul, right? Because that's what happens in the movie. He's like, I'll take your soul, and he grabs this guy and pulls his soul out. So there's a dude that stands up, and that's Riddick. That's the guy that's like, you know, fuck this, I don't bow to no man. You know what I mean? And he fights them, and you know, he has this long journey or whatever. Now, if you think about it, it's pretty much like the stories that are told in here, because, like, okay, for instance, David, that's in the story that defeated Goliath. He was a king, or he was anointed a king after he fought so many battles and committed so many murders. Like, well, not really murders, but you know, he fought in war. You know, he did a lot of war. He was a warrior, and he ran nation. Like he ran his own nation, and it was supposed to be a good nation through God. But over time, of course, you know, so much evil came about where, like, it is what it is nowadays. Now you got all these nations that are doing evil shit, and they're running over us, and you have no clue. You know what I mean? Like, you're just a fucking slave to this whole thing. And a lot of people do agree with it, because I've seen it on Facebook, I've seen it on fucking YouTube. People are like, oh, we're living in the Matrix and da da da. And a lot of fools, you know, some of them just play with it to get clout. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is how you break away from the Matrix. And fool, you don't know anything about breaking from the Matrix. There's no such thing as breaking out of the Matrix. You know what I mean? Like, this is life. This is just what it is. The Matrix is pretty much a story that tells you of the creation and where you come from and how things work. And it was just in terms, like when they showed the battery, that was talking about like how we're enslaved right now, right? They use you for all your energy. Like, you could be working at the casino for 30 fucking years, and they find at some point, they're like, oh, get rid of this fool, fuck him. And they fuck him off, right? And then they pull somebody else in and they rehire him. They know what's up, you know what I mean? And some of them, they either do believe where they're at, or, you know, the casino doesn't care. They just kind of keep them. But there has been a lot of people that get booted out, and they've been there for like 30-something years, and they're left with nothing. You know what I mean? And it's no different from like when people go to the army, and they come back with PTSD, and they're all fucked up, and they barely get any pay. You know, I know there's one of them that lives over here, I think in one of the apartments, you know. I don't know the name or anything, but I know that he's been fucked over, you know, and he only makes so much to where he makes a living just as well as I do. But I mean, they're not respected the way they should be respected. You know what I mean? And then they're left with all that trauma. Like, you know, and a lot of people will drink or smoke weed when they deal with stuff like that. You know what I mean? So The Matrix is a good movie to go off of. Like if you don't want to read the Bible or whatever, it does stem from that though, because they talk about you being awake. Like when it happened with Neo, you know, with that individual where he was like, "Oh man, I can't ever go back," you know, and Morpheus was like, "No," he's all, "But if you could, would you really want to?" Now that's true, because what they're really stating is that, because from what I've been learning, ever since I opened up this book and I started praying, I know the truth now. You know what I mean? And since I've been exposed to it, I can't stop. I keep looking and searching. And, you know, as many times as I'm like, you know what, fuck this. I just want to quit. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm still turning to it, you know, like, or I'm getting signs, you know, especially throughout my day. And that's what it is basically like when you fully awake and you come to the truth, you're not afraid to speak up anymore. You know what I mean? You become your own individual where you're like, this isn't right. This is, you know, like this is wrong. Or you stand up for yourself and they don't like that shit. You know what I mean? Like if you control everything and you're trying to like keep people, you know, down and not stand up, when one person does, dude, they hate that shit. But imagine if we all stood up and we're like, fuck this. You know what I mean? So that's basically from what you could learn from the movie, um, because there's certain things you really have to just kind of pay attention to. You know what I mean? Especially like when he plugs him into the Matrix for the first time. He's like, "This is gonna feel a little weird," and he shows up, and they're in a computer software program, and it's all white. And this isn't real. And he's touching the couch, and he's like, "What is real? How do you define real?" He's all, "If you're talking about what you could taste, feel, and smell," he's all, "then basically real is just little electrical circuits firing off in your brain, right? That makes the sensation to make it feel like, you know what I mean?" Yeah, because think about it, right? The term to that, the term word to that, to be like, okay, how do you define real, right? Like, how do you really define that? You can't. To a certain extent, you can't. Maybe at some point you can, but how do you define breathing, right? There's another one, like, you can't see it, but you know it's there, right? You have to breathe. If it's not there, I'd just be like, all of us would be like that, like, you wouldn't even move here. You wouldn't even have fucking lungs. You know what I mean? Like if there was no air. Like, but how do you define the air? You can't see it, you know? You have to breathe. You know, when you're sleeping there, you ever forget to breathe? Like, you wake up. See what I'm saying though? But that's what I'm saying. People want fucking proof of shit sometimes to be like, well, if there is a God, why doesn't he show himself? Why come this? How come that? Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, well, prove air. You know what I mean? People want proof, and it's like, okay, well, if I can't prove to you that God exists, you prove to me that air exists. You know, can you show it to me? Can you give it to me? You know, can you show me how you breathe it in? No, you can't. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's why they say that in the terms that I've been learning in this book, when they say it's evident, that means that no matter what, it's always going to be fucking there. It's always going to be there without fucking fail. It's never going to go anywhere. You might die one day and pass away. It's still going to fucking be there. So it means that even if it's evidently to be true, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do whatsoever to like not make it true. It's always going to be the truth. It's always going to be the truth. You know what I mean? So that's how I kind of look at that shit. Or that's just what it really actually is, you know? So, because I know a lot of people, they want proof, they want scientific evidence and this and that. Sometimes, okay, I get it. Like, if you're in court and you got to battle a case, you know, you need scientific evidence to certain things. But evidence of scientist shit or science in general can only go so far to teach evidential shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's some things that aren't of the physical that can't be taught in science. It can't be proven. It can't be shown. You know what I mean? Some things that you can't grasp. You know what I mean? Like your conscience, like what is it in your mind that like allows you or even wakes you up, you know, like Like some people, like if they have like let's say they took too much drugs, right? And they're like, and they're just constantly getting fucked up, right? Something will stop them where they'll hit their conscience and they're like, oh man, I need to stop. Like I gotta clean up. And they clean up, right? Because they're going too far with it and they could probably possibly die. But what was it that stemmed in their conscience to be like, oh, I gotta stop, right? It's probably not just them. It's probably a higher force that's like that comes in and you can't see it, and they wake you up. Like, let's magically like take all this shit that's cluttering his mind and kind of get him to his conscience because he needs to eat. He needs to replenish his body. Like, this fool's gonna fucking die. There is guardian angels. I'm sure there is. That God sends to be like, well, it's not your time yet, even though you have these issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I look at it. Like, define your conscience. You know what I mean? Like, science can probably measure some of that, but to a broad scale, they can't really prove it. You know what I mean? They can't really prove certain things that will show you like how do you really think? Like, can you show that of your thought process? Like, you can't. You know what I mean? There's certain things that aren't measured, like or calculations of events that's gonna go on. There is certain things like algorithm and all that other shit, but um, just long story short, like I was saying, science isn't ever always gonna be able to prove it. And then also too, it's like when they say to have faith, it honestly just means just to believe. You know what I mean? And people try to figure out like, well, what is believe? What is faith? What is holiness? What is this? What is that? You know what I mean? Those are just words. But believing in something is knowing that no matter what, like, I'm gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Like, you have to know that that's gonna be it, and that's the true belief. You know what I mean? Like, words actually mean something to the physical, and the physical actually means something to the words, and that's why they say like your mind, body, and spirit. You know what I mean? Like, if you're all one with that, then you'll have your fucking full answer. Like, everything stems from us or from what was taught back then till now. So like when you're with your phone, for a good example, like you want to get around town, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna look up Burger King. If you've never been here, you're gonna look up Burger King in Bullhead City. Where's it at? And it's gonna GPS it, right? And you follow that GPS. Now back then, like, I know when I was growing up in like 1990 or 1998, 1995, I was born in 1986. There was no fucking cell phones or GPS, right? So like if you get on the freeway, good luck. You know what I mean? You hit the 60, you got to take the west, and oh, did I get off of the ramp on the 10? Like, you didn't have no fucking GPS that's telling you like in 23 miles you'll be making a right or a heed left. Take the I-17 and two more stops of exit 9-5 or whatever, right? Like, you don't get any of that, dude. So like back then, you got to think about it. You're your own GPS, right? Like with me, like when I would be at home, there was no cell phone with me. People were barely starting to get into the cell phones, but I had a house phone. I'll get like a call every now and then. But if I was just chilling on the couch, I would collaborate in my mind like, okay, what am I gonna do for the next couple of days? Like, I want to go out and chill, and I want to meet some girls and hang out with my homies, and you know what I mean? I would think all this stuff, and then I would just be like, all right, I'll be back. And I would get up and go. And I'd be gone for like 2 or 3 days. Every now and then, in between those 2 or 3 days, I would call my house, and they're like, hello? I'm like, hey, it's me. I'm just letting you know that I'm checking in. I'm over here. And they're like, oh, okay. But when I wouldn't call, they're like, oh, Raymond hasn't called in to check in. See, you condition yourself. You condition with those people, like, which was my mom, my sister. Now, they were recognizing, like, this nigga hasn't been home in like 2 or 3 days, and he hasn't called. Now we need to fucking question what's going on. I was in jail. I got in trouble and I ended up in jail. You know what I mean? So if you think about it, like your phone, it's got you conditioned in so many ways. Like you rely on it so much. You're on the Facebook, you're GPSing things to get to where you need to go, majority of the time. You're not just going with heed with your life. Like, hey, let's just go over here, fuck it, and see what happens. You know what I mean? I know some people that are like that. But all I'm saying is that, like, it's really important to know that we're conditioned in a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? And it's important to uncondition yourself to really understand like who you are, like how do you work, you know what I mean? And some people still live old school like that. Like there's people that live off the grid, like out in the forest or in the mountain, and they have homes, and they might drive out every 40 miles, 50 miles to get into town and get what they need and then just come back. And they don't pay no fucking rent. They don't pay no light electricity or anything. They don't have to go to a 5 to 9 job. Like they just enjoy the nature. They might do some farming on their land and all that. But that's the way we should be living. You know what I mean? Like we shouldn't have to be living the way we do nowadays. Like with this whole Trump thing that went on, like that whole, like he got shot supposedly. It's just entertainment, dude. Like anybody that's up there in the entertainment or that's like preaching shit to you, or just news in general, anything that has to do with like, oh, the United States of America, we're united, right? Fuck no, dude. If anything, we're so dislocated from each other, like we're so segregated. There's nothing united about us. That's just where they trick you. Like, oh, we're united. If we're so united, what was all that Black Lives Matter bullshit, right? The cops beating on certain races, or the riots that were going on, this COVID shit, people getting mad at the Chinese people because of the COVID thing, right? Like, we're not together. Like, we're fucking so separated. You know what I mean? And there's a song about that too, where it's like, gotta keep them separated. Bam, bam, bam. Come on and play, right? And that's basically what it is. You know, like we're so segregated, and it's like we're not fucking united, dude. And the United States, I'm not talking about us people, but I'm talking about the people that claim this shit, like the Illuminati and all those other fucking fools, the Freemasons and all that. Like those fools, like they know what they're doing. Like they're in control of everything. The fucking YouTube, the Facebook, the Instagram, you know, shit that you post on there that might be speaking of the truth, they'll fucking take you off that shit. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's so much out there. You know what I mean? I think we need to really like get together and unite with one another and really figure out like what the fuck's going on. You know what I mean? Or you know, I think people should get more healthier, train, learn about defense and stuff like that, because who knows what's gonna happen. You know, like after that little event, there might be some fucking crazier shit that happens after that. You know what I mean? And especially in the Revelations, from what I read, and if anybody else has read it, there's gonna be a lot of fucking crazy shit that happens. You know what I mean? And we're so close to the end. Like, I don't think anybody's really paying attention to that. You know what I mean? Yes, we have to live and do our daily thing. Do your daily thing, work, pay your bills, do what you need to do in order to stay sane, but be aware of like what's going on in the world. You know what I mean? Because it's not what we think it really is. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are either lost, or they're just poorly conditioned a certain way, or you know, they just don't know any better. You know what I mean? And trust me, I've been there. Like from the very beginning, I didn't know what was going on about certain shit, and over time, luckily, thank God, man, that I got to where I'm at now, where I'm like really recognizing a lot of shit. I'm really getting the learning and the grasping and the teaching. You know, especially all my conditioning. There's a reason why I push for that, or I have a passion for that, is to keep conditioning and getting stronger and getting better at what I do, or running my crazy 100 and something miles or whatever, you know. And anyways, that's all I got for right now. I hope you guys have a good night, and I hope you enjoy the video. I know they're a lot longer than usual, but anyways, I hope the message gets to you guys. And like I said, I'm more blunt than other people that try to hide shit. You know what I mean? But I'd rather be more open about the truth, because I feel that in these times, it before it really starts to come out, it's better to hear it now, so that way you could take it with a grain of salt, and then when it actually does hit, you're already kind of know about it. You're already prepared for it. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, that's just for people that might still be in a slumber. But you guys have a great night. God bless you. Thank you to everybody that gave me my balloon and my cologne and wishing me happy birthday. You know, if you are saying it with a good heart and you're not trying to play a nigga, but you guys have a good one, and you guys stay safe out there and keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying, nigga? And oh yeah, I forgot to add, Alex, Suck my cock. Suck it the cock. Suck my cock. I'm just playing, bro. Hey, I'll see you